And again, in the spirit of not wishing to spoil anything, I won't say too much, but this is, again, an ongoing collaboration, again, between the Urban Big Data Centre, this time with North Lanarkshire Council, and looking at issues around unequal access to services and what the sort of the digital platforms and the data that's available within the organisation can tell us. So please, over to you guys. Thanks.
Okay, so Yang and I are going to just give you a little bit of an insight into what we've found as a result of doing this research before handing over to Nicole, who will hopefully give some sort of flavour of whether or not it might be valuable intelligence for the Council. So what have we learnt so far from this research? It's still in its early days. We only got the data agreement signed back in October. We got the data just before Christmas. Yang has been working extremely hard in terms of making this data usable, etc. But we are beginning to sort of learn quite a lot from this data quite quickly. And I think the first thing to emphasise is this issue about austerity. Now, North Lanarkshire Council, like many other councils, have lost a lot of resource over the last 10 years. Nicole's Environmental Service Department has lost a third of its resource, basically. Some of the literature suggests that austerity can be absorbed, it can be managed, it can be wished away. Service users might not notice the difference as a result of these quite substantial service cuts. What our work with North Lanarkshire is able to do is it's able to show that's not true. Actually, when you take resources away, you can't just, there is an effect. And what we see very clearly in these data is that there's increased requests from ordinary people for additional service to address environmental needs in their neighbourhoods. The service requests have doubled over the austerity period. And we're also seeing that the council, with its reduced resources, takes longer to address those problems. Now, before austerity started, response times around about were less than a day. If someone phoned up to say there was a problem, it was resolved in less than a day. At the peak of the issue, we're talking 6 or 7 days. So it's a very substantial difference to people's enjoyment of their neighbourhood as a result of cuts. There's as Peter mentioned, there's also long-standing academic concern and concern within public services that when you cut budgets, it's the poorer places and people who suffer more. Austerity bites more deeply in there, and Peter mentioned one of the mechanisms by which that might occur. Because we have the addresses of the people reporting the problems, we're able to match those addresses to the index of multiple deprivation and understand patterns in relation to that. What we found is good news so far, in the sense that budget cuts have affected everybody in North Lanarkshire, but not poorer groups in a disproportionate manner. So that is an important issue, and I think hopefully it's important for North Lanarkshire that they haven't passed on the effects of austerity to those people perhaps less able to cope with it. But in less good news, we have found that in the more deprived neighbourhoods, over the period in which we have the data over the 10 years, there are higher rates of reporting of need from poorer households, and there are slightly but consistently longer response times from the council in being able to address those needs. So that's perhaps something that's useful intelligence for them. So hand over to Yang, and then I'll be popping back up again.
So I'll talk about something about what we found around gender pattern. As we all recognize that nowadays we could face gender inequality issue in our daily life, especially from aspect of working places, and also possibly you could find inequality in health services system as well. Particular with regard to our topic today, this could be found in the public services provision process as well. Inspired by Invisible Women thesis, we start to look at our data, to see if we could find some gender gap in our case. So in order to do that, we firstly annotate gender attribute from assessing the customer's title and name field in the CRM system. And then we start to look at gender pattern against different socioeconomic contexts. And overall, the results are quite mixed, but first of all, we're glad to say that we haven't found any gender discrimination issue in North Lanarkshire case. It seems like the system responds quite similarly to women and men service requests. It's probably because the frontline staff probably not necessary to know the gender difference between women and men when they call into the call center, and also allocating when they allocating the service resources. And but through our analysis, we do have a clear evidence to say that women have made proportionally higher volumes of service requests than men. Nearly 65% of the service requests are made by women, while comparing to 30% from men. And this propensity has been consistent over every year throughout the 10 years period of budget cuts. And through our analysis, we also find that the service, women has made significantly higher proportion of service requests in those deprived areas, comparing to their male deprived counterparts, and also comparing to their female less deprived counterparts in other areas. And also, when we look at individuals making multiple service requests, we find that women has made significantly higher multiple service requests in deprived neighborhood. We have witnessed a number of women customers have made 40 to 60 service requests throughout the 10 years, and we have a women super reporter as a champion who has made 144 service requests throughout the 10 years time. It all seems suggesting that women has been bearing more of the burden in reporting these kind of services, and with regard to community building, the inequality issue probably more apply to the deprived areas. On the other side of the coin, when we look into the dissatisfaction reports, we find that men has more likelihood to report this kind of issue comparing to other groups of gender groups or deprivation groups. This probably indicating that the affluent men group probably more likely to project their higher social status to their expectations of the services, and then have higher chances to report or to complain.
Okay, well, just before passing on to Nicole, just a couple of points in terms of thinking about what's on offer here and what might we do with these data. I mean, I think the first thing to say is that these data are very, very rich, and they're currently sitting in the databases of councils across the land, and could be exploited much more. Now, there are technical issues around exploiting those. There is data analytical expertise which is required, which Yang is embodying at the front here. And we're also hoping, as part of this work, to try and make these data more usable, or to publish on how these data can be used and cleaned and handled in ways that are useful to other people. Also, in relation to this under-exploitation, I guess we hadn't really expected to look at gender issues when we started this work, but we realised we could, and therefore that we probably should, because there is this understanding that there is a real dearth of data around gender issues. We didn't really expect to find that North Lanarkshire Council was discriminating against women. Very relieved to discover they weren't. That's not an area that women have to really be concerned about at the moment. But it did show up that women are doing more of the work in their neighbourhood to try and maintain it. And that would seem to be an important issue for us all. So it can reveal some hidden structures in society, trends over time and biases that are ongoing when we combine these data with other data. So, next step, North Lanarkshire, we have this fantastic database. We're also hoping to use some of their data around cleanliness and outcomes, location of bins, those kinds of things to sort of bring together more sophisticated models that try and understand the neighbourhood characteristics that lead to environmental challenges and how those can be managed. And more broadly, we're clear that there's a need to try and make these data more usable to more people to help them understand what's going on in their council area, but also to feed into developing, addressing problems with developing practice. So with that, I will pass over on to Nicole.
Good morning, everyone. Nicole Patterson, North Lanarkshire Council. I think it would be fair to say when Annette, Peter and Yang first asked to come and meet me, I was never more surprised because street cleaning is a service that no one ever talks about. It's very much a Cinderella service. It's something which we all take for granted. We know there's much litter and detritus and, of course, the ever-present dog fouling, but it's not something that anyone talks about. It's work that we tend to go about quietly in local government, but there's high expectation as to what we're able to tackle and how much we're able to pick up. The reality in local government is that we are collecting a great variety of data, and Annette, Peter and Yang have highlighted that. But we collect the data, and then, to be perfectly honest, we don't have the means to do anything with that data. So it sits there in a data vault until such times as it requires to be cleared out. So we were more than happy, of course, GDPR notwithstanding, to share all and every piece of data that we had, not least because we were interested to see what the team could find from that data on street cleansing. And I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure over the last few months working with the team, because it's brought a different dimension to the work that we are doing. Annette's already highlighted that no, of course, the council doesn't discriminate against individuals, particularly not least in terms of requests for street cleansing. But the reality is, now we know. Now we know where in our neighbourhoods the hardest work's ongoing, some individual customers who we perhaps need to engage with more readily. But I think more importantly, in a place like North Lanarkshire, where it's fundamentally important to the council's ambition to create a place that we want to live, learn, work, invest, visit in, that actually we target the resources that we have in the very best way and to the greatest effect. So much of the work which the team have been doing will actually inform the deployment of our resources as we go forward. That's important. The team have already highlighted the fact that austerity and the cuts to budgets over the last 10 years have had quite a significant, profound impact. But again, what I think is important is that street cleaning has until recently been a very, very traditional service. If you look at street cleaning, we pretty much do things in the same way that we have over the last 70, 80, even 100 years. That's changing, I'm glad to say, and it's changing because of the advent of technology and the interpretation of data like you're seeing today. The opportunity to understand the impact of our operational deployment, the opportunity to get a bigger bang for our buck is hugely important, and I absolutely want to emphasise that. One such example, and I'll be honest, when we embarked on this project with the team, we didn't know just what value we would obtain from it, but a very, very early one was a request from the Council's Audit and Scrutiny Panel to look at street cleaning, and it was on the back of local government benchmarking framework data, which only looks at a few hundred households in North Lanarkshire from the overall 144,000 households. What we were able to do from the data and the analysis presented from the team is present a much deeper dive into street cleansing, into the cumulative effects of austerity over the last 10 years. Surprising, I think, the local members, just in terms of the cumulative effects, some 35% of the budget reduced over the last 10 years. Looking at how many additional complaints, because of course there is a correlation between the removal of proactive services and then the amount of one-off deployments that you have to do, the amount of individual customers who then write in asking for additional service. It's led us to other areas within the team to look at the sense of perception versus reality, because what we saw from the data is that the perception of individuals of the need for a high quality environment, which of course is important to us, wasn't necessarily matched by the resources which we had to deploy. And we're seeing a shift, a very important shift in citizens actually understanding the role that they can play in their local environment as well, because particularly around items like street cleaning and dog filling, they're all avoidable. It doesn't need to happen. So the service is shifting very much. What it's highlighted to us is the very important impact of technology and the gathering of data. So the service is really on the cusp of deploying further sensors into the environment, and it's actually following the Glasgow model of putting out new bins, high capacity bins, which all have sensors within the bins, because again we understand now that the data that we can capture from that is hugely powerful in understanding where our services need to be, where they can make the biggest impact, where we can encourage people to put the litter in the bin, and therefore remove that more proactive litter picking resource, because that's at the end of the day much of what it is. It's allowing us to shape and inform the service so that we move away from, to be honest, the avoidable work, the litter picking, etc., by trying to engender a greater pride in local communities to do their bit, to allow us to move on to the more proactive and focused work on detritus, which follows the new code of practice for litter. So the reality is the greater use of the data, the work that the team's done so far, has provided better information, not only just to the management team and environmental assets, but actually also to the elected members of the council as well, so that we truly understand the resourcing, the deployment, the impact that the resources and the outcomes that we're getting actually on the ground. And that information and the information that continues to come from the team will help us much more powerfully target those, as we've heard, limited and decreasing resources. And that's important not just for North Lanarkshire Council, but for every local authority as we move forward. So the reality, just in finishing, is that traditionally the one-size-fits-all service, from the use of data, it's seen quite powerfully that the future will be different. It will be much more targeted, much more resource focused, and allow us to make the best use of those resources.